Well, hello, and welcome to Minnesota Homeownership Center's Welcome Home podcast. My name is Bill Gray, and today we have two very special guests from an organization here in the Twin Cities we work together with a lot called Build Wealth Minnesota. Joining me are David McGee, Build Wealth Executive Director and Founder, and Jeffrey Robinson, Senior Program Director. Welcome to you both.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming. So let's dig right in. David, you're a longtime advocate and activist for equitable home ownership and the need to eliminate our racial home ownership gap. Tell us a little bit about what Build Wealth Minnesota does in this area. And I know you have a family stabilization program, for instance. What does a typical client look like when they come to you to chase home ownership?
Yeah, on the equity side, we've been working pretty extensively since 2005 on trying to address racial disparities. Governor Pawlenty had came out with an initiative that had quite a few players in there, including a home ownership center. And so we worked with that and at a whole bunch of tables since then that we've been trying to address disparities, in addition to just working with a lot of families based on our general work with the Family Stabilization Plan program. And we have been receiving families from all over the Twin Cities area, some in Duluth and some of the other cities, Rochester and others, but mostly in the 7 Metro County area. We have families that have been coming to our programming, the Family Stabilization Plan. We launched it about 15 years ago, and it's a cohort model where we see probably 30 to 50 families. We've seen as many as 154 families in a cohort. And families primarily are African American and people of color, but we've been working with people from all over the world. You name it, they've been there. All of the African countries and Russia and Romania, Budapest. We've had folks from
Uzbekistan.
Yes. So we've worked with folks from all over, and we found that this program is family centric. And it meets the needs of all of our families, all of them. Some people think or have the notion that all the people we work with have bad credit and low income, but we have a full range of folks that we work for, and found that folks a lot of times with higher incomes have more challenges than those folks with lower incomes in terms of their stewardship. So we've been working with a number of people for quite a while, and we've stayed busy the whole time. We've always got a waiting list for each one of our new cohorts. And more recently, Jeff probably can jump in here, but we've been doing a lot of outreach with a number of organizations where we're bringing our show on the road, so to speak, to these other organizations, providing them with the family stabilization.
So is it fair to say it's more than just home ownership we're talking about here?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the Family Stabilization Program, Dave like to say quite eloquently in the class, if you're just here for home ownership, then this might not be the program for you, because the program is built around literally helping families, one, stabilize the family structure, creating a platform or foundation for being able to generate and build long-standing social and financial wealth. Because we're more concerned about the person being in position to build wealth than necessarily home ownership. Now, mind you, home ownership is the number one way to build wealth. Yep. So that's at the top of the list. And that's what most people come here. But it's not just about home ownership. It's literally about all the components that's necessary for getting into home ownership and making sure that you're thriving and excelling in those different areas.
Yeah, really putting people on a very nice trajectory to future success, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree that we do teach a lot about systems, and that's been really important, as good and bad systems. A lot of these folks are going through generational poverty and discrimination and not being able to navigate through systems and how they work. And that's critical to being a sustainable homeowner, is that you know how to navigate systems and A lot of the families we see have been taken advantage by predatory practice that exists
Right.
and different systems that exist. And we're just trying to get them in a position to learn them and then pass down that information to other generations.
Yeah. Very cool. David, can I ask you what brought you to this line of work? How did you end up running the organization Build Wealth?
I am a banker. Don't throw anything at me. But, like attorneys. No, I've been a banker. I've always wanted to be a banker and own my own bank. As a child has been my desire. Still working on it.
Fascinating.
Well, we are CDFI, so
Uh-huh.
we're a community nonprofit bank in a sense. But that's where I started in this area, and I've done everything in banking except be a teller. I guess own a bank and work in some of the other smaller areas of the bank. But anyway, I've always desired to be a bank, and then ultimately one day spiritually I was tapped on the shoulder or pulled in the collar
There you go.
for me to give back all that I've looked, all that I've done. I've been in 46 states around the country auditing banks and doing mortgage-backed securities and selling off assets of banks in order for them to get back established. And underwriting is one of the primary areas that I got involved in. And underwriters are the ones who decide whether or not you get a loan.
Right.
And I just really loved that area and started training underwriters and processors around the country for different banks. And then I was kind of tapped on the shoulder, like I said, and pulled by the collar to start giving back that information to the community. And I started an underwriting training program, and then ultimately started a really deep, comprehensive financial education component to that for families and helping families avoid predatory practices. That's where it all started almost naturally, and now I've made it my life's work to educate families and their families and churches and anybody who would listen, so to speak, to kind of transform their lives.
I think that's great. So much of that is left out in school, and like you say, so many people prey on that. But how about you, Jeffrey? How do you end up in this line of work?
Actually, I'm one of his prodigies. So he, in fact, my connection to Dave was through his underwriting training. I had decided to pursue a career in the mortgage industry, started off as a processor, and decided to spread my wings and go on to be an underwriter. And I looked for some training, and lo and behold, Dave McGee and Mortgage Professional Services Group, right, MPSG, popped up on the popped up on the thing, and from there, I went on to travel, as Dave done, nationally here, locally here, some international, and I was tapped as well. We came to know Build Wealth as a client first.
Okay.
And my family, I was an underwriter, so my family needed to be underwritten out of foreclosure. And so, because when the mortgage industry collapsed, 60-70% of my income collapsed alongside of it. And so, and my debt didn't. And so we had to learn how to live a different kind of life, which required, looking at our finance and our expenses a lot more closely and a lot more intently. And so my connection started off as a client who needed help. And from there, I went on to be a volunteer coach to a contract coach to where I am today.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think it's always fascinating to know, where people come from in this line of work, what experience they have under their belt that they can, they've lived it, they can share with others how to make these things happen. So, Yeah, so like we said, a lot of really great and groundbreaking work going on, really statewide and all over right now as far as equitable access to home ownership goes. Build Wealth is central to the thinking that goes into bringing a lot of these initiatives to life. I know you, David, you're active in the work we're doing with Twin Cities Habitat to develop that special purpose credit program for down payment assistance aimed at foundational Black households here in Minnesota. Foundational Black households are those who can trace their ancestral lineage back to slavery. We've also got 150 million in first generation down payment assistance coming online next year from the state. So really, now it's time to act on home ownership if you've been sitting on the fence. Despite higher mortgage interest rates, owning still makes sense when compared to renting. And the help of organizations like Build Wealth and the Minnesota Home Ownership Center, it's always available. Our respective paths cross all the time as you guys refer prospective home buyers to our home ownership advisors network, partners and educators, and we collaborate with you and others on projects such as your 9,000 Equities initiative. This particular project is pretty cool, actually. Let's talk about that a bit. David, Jeffrey, tell us a little bit about what Build Wealth is trying to do with the 9,000 Equities program.
We're trying to do multiple things. Jeff and I had went through a training with the Prosperity Now group, and it was building high impact nonprofits of color. And we are primarily led by people of color. And they were looking at the outcomes of Build Wealth, which literally exceeded or definitely were in line with a lot of larger nonprofit organizations and agencies in terms of our outcomes. However, our balance sheet and some of the other things that we were doing did not line up. And so we were provided several coaches, our own coaches, that helped us start looking at building Build Wealth up. And at the end of the day, we had three major focus areas that we ended up coming up with. We had been working on closing disparity gaps since 2005.
Sure.
And then we had the family stabilization plan is very impactful and very effective. So we decided we were going to try to make that a standardized education. And then we wanted to expand this, our work nationally, ultimately. And so we started looking at what if Jeff and I sat down and said, we've been working on disparity gaps, and Build Wealth had been doing its part. And I think we've gotten over 5,000 families, Black families, into home ownership over a period of time. But the disparity gaps were widening, and we were just really concerned what's really going on.
Right.
And you can't do it alone. You're going to have to, in order to address these disparity gaps, we needed several partners to help us do this. And so we started saying, well, what if we could really, I've been at all these tables of Plenty's home ownership opportunity was to try to get 40,000 people of color in home ownership. Didn't happen. Several tables I've been at over the years had these numbers they just threw out there, and none of them were successful. And so Jeff and I really sat down and started analyzing, what if we could just close it by 15% and then set it on the pathway and the trajectory to ultimately close, maybe not in our lifetime, but maybe we could get it moving. So we started doing a lot of numbers, and Prosperity Now had some really fresh new numbers and data that showed that in order to close the disparity gap for Black folks, which had the worst disparity level, had gotten worse. When we first started back in 2005, it was around 30% home ownership. It actually got to 16% in the city of St. Paul. And we said, what if we can close this by 15%? Come to find out, the number was 29,000. If we could get 29,000 Black households into home ownership, then we would close the disparity gap completely. And as we started looking at that, I said, what if we try 15%? And we started mapping out in the pathway to get there and things that we could actually touch and we could quantify and qualify and know that we had partners that could come in this. And we figured out how many years it would take us. And so we came up with just 9,000. That was the number. And we started looking at the pathway through our mapping, it appeared that we could possibly do this in 7 years. So we first and foremost started pulling together partners that we knew that had made this their life's work, as we had, that we knew that they would do this even if they would do it for free,
right?
Almost. And so we found a number of partners like that. Ultimately, we started with Build Wealth and 11 other organizations and or individuals that have made it their life's work to address disparities and help, build equitable opportunities for folks. And we launched in December of 2021. We launched with these partners and started raising money, and very successful in raising quite a bit of money. We were one of our coaches through Prosperity Now, Andrea Levere, I have to say her name, really gave us some insights on how to get the interest of national funders and also get some of our existing funders to reimagine providing funding in a way where it was impact investing. And we started going down the path, raised a whole bunch of money in a short period of time. And by March, we started branding the 9,000 equities. We are on billboards and every place you could see.
I've definitely seen them out there. Yeah.
Every place you could possibly see us, we literally started branding. Did a great job. So by June of that year, the branding had took almost like a fire. Took fire, and then we did our first event, and the rest is history. And we've now got 16 partners, and we brought in Minnesota Home Ownership Center. And we've got some really unique partners. Our Urban Homeworks is in there. We've got, Trey. We've got some rock stars in this too. Trey Adams, he's a rock star, young guy. I've been in this 40 years, and he's been in it 5 or 6 years. But man, the community loves him. He's been quite the trusted advisor. Diamond Levy, another rock star, and several folks. Shauna Fraser and her group. We got. Can't forget Henry. And we don't even.
Henry Record.
We don't even need his last name. He's just Henry. And Trent. You don't need his last name.
Don't need
Trent Bowman and some others that they've been doing this for years, and they have they've worked with the least to the greatest, and they've always have leaned on education. So we pulled this team together and asked them if they would run with us on this thing. And it was a long-term opportunity, and it wasn't about getting any more deals. It was about closing the disparity gap. Everybody signed on, and it's been going well ever since.
Very cool. So 7 years, 9,000 Black families moved into home ownership is the goal. And we're like a year into it, is that right? Maybe.
Yeah, we're technically just started our official second year of production, so to speak, if you call it that. We're calling June 4th our date of actually starting presenting to start counting numbers. And so we're technically in our second year. We are well over, I believe, 700 families in our first year. Goal was to do 950 a year for the first couple of years, and then by the fourth year, we'd start doing about 1,600. And we're on the path. It took a little rocky start.
Of course.
It's a big deal. But the one greatest thing about it is that it's off to the races, so to speak. And we got over 600 people in home ownership, but then we also have nearly 1,000 people in the pipeline at various stages of preparing to be homeowners. All taking a lot taking the family stabilization plan, and us taking advantage of all these different tools. We're kind of solidifying our toolbox with some new stuff for down payment assistance. The rates kind of threw us off. The minute we got all this momentum, the rates doubled. So we've had to do some adjustments.
Makes a big difference.
Huge difference. So that kind of slowed us down a bit, but
at the same time, you got 150 million in first gen coming.
Yes.
That's going to make a difference.
Not to mention, we end up getting a number of organizations where they have started putting some energy and possibly some future impact investment into this area.
Yeah.
You got Groundbreak, who's doing
Mhm.
some stuff coming up. U.S. Bank
Yep.
is getting ready to make some huge investments with Home Access Home.
Mm-hmm.
That's coming in to pull that family foundation,
Mm-hmm.
and others have not only invested in this initiative, but are trying to expand the initiative to get some real traction. We have a lot of banks here, the largest banks in the world, so to speak, are here and have big footprints here.
Yeah.
And Wells Fargo historically has done more mortgages than any bank or any financial institution in the country.
Uh-huh.
They have one of the biggest footprints here, but the disparities are at its worst.
Right.
So we are elated to see them try to come alongside of this kind of work, and we're hoping that we'll be greater partners as we go.
Yeah.
We didn't want to stop 9,000 Equities because they were thinking about,
Right.
and they're engaging in and
Right.
doing a lot of data searching.
Right.
We're going to keep moving forward, and we're just hoping that they come alongside of us and make great investments so we can make good strides in getting it closed completely. So maybe our 7 years, ultimately, with their help, we close this disparity gap.
Yeah.
We figured if we could close, help 5,000 Black families get into home ownership with a little old bill. Well, if 5 of the major banks also did the same thing, we're close to closing the disparity gap.
Yeah. Yeah. It's what is the word? It's a daunting problem, but it's also doable.
Yeah.
If we just knuckle down. And what I see is, like you say, momentum not only in things starting to move in that direction, but in the thinking of society that this is an issue in the first place, let alone important to fix. So I don't know, I feel like this is a very good time right now, but also a lot of hard work still needed. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. Jeffrey, where can people go to find out more about 9,000 Equities?
Go to our website, www.9000equities.com, or they can contact us at 612-871-9000.
Okay. Oh, cool. 612-871-9000.
Yes.
All right. So if you're curious about home ownership, take a look at that website and see if 9,000 Equities may be able to help you. All right. I think that's it for this episode. Thank you, guys. If you're interested in exploring home ownership for you and your own household, you can take a look at that 9,000 Equities site. You can also take a home buying class and enlist the help of a home ownership advisor for free by going to our website, hocmn.org. That's the Minnesota Home Ownership Center. Our advisors and educators are embedded in organizations across the state, and they'll work with you to get you mortgage ready, educate you on the buying process from A to Z, and walk with you through every step of the process. I want to thank our guests today, David McGee and Jeffrey Robinson. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate that. In closing, I want to acknowledge our sponsors as always: Associated Bank, Bremer Bank, Midwest One Bank, and Old National Bank. Our sincere thanks to each of these organizations for their support. Thanks for watching and listening.